And that would be where, particularly on the corporate side, so companies, and it tends to be bigger companies who have access to legal resources and tax advisors. They structure their finances in a way where they could challenge what the law says is permissible and what is not. Now, I've also sent through to your colleagues in the production team yesterday are some examples of what we find in what we call structured financing arrangements. That is typically where you have a multinational company or even a domestic company that may have either offshore entities that is linked to it. There are a number of bank accounts, and losses and profits are then transferred from the operations in South Africa where the business activity takes place to other tax jurisdictions that may have lower tax rates. Now, you introduced the show with some comments about the debates in the G8 and G20, and that's exactly what I think globally the debate is steering towards. Are corporates doing the right thing? Many of them operate in multiple countries at the same time. They are registered for tax and domiciled in one particular country. Profits and losses may be shifted to another jurisdiction with lower tax rates. And the question is, are they contributing their fair share to the tax base in any country that they are doing business, that they are generating profits, where they are facing risks? Where exactly is their tax liability? Are they paying the correct amount of tax? And is it a fair dispensation when you have countries with lower tax rates and higher tax rates, and you can shift your profits to the one with the lowest effective rate?
Maggie, I want to kick off with you as well. Tax evasion and Mr. Lake talked about tax avoidance. There's a clear separation between the two. How do you understand it, especially when you talk to your clients?
I think I'll just support what is just said right now, that most companies, how the companies would normally do it. From the individual side, what normally happens, like you've got your global mobile people who keep coming to the country and going, and they remain paid in their offshore. Maybe there is no company here in South Africa, and there's no way that SARS can pick it up, that, okay, this person has been coming in and out of the country. The only way that we can try and sort that one out is, for example, if maybe there is a link between the immigration and SARS, and that way, whenever the people come in and go, that will normally be your short-term business travelers, because they come here maybe for 2 weeks to try and fix the machine, and then off they go, and then they come back again. So they might trigger a tax liability here, but then there's no one who's monitoring them. But then from the companies that we are dealing with, they are aware of that, and they are fixing it. They know that they need to have systems in place, even though there isn't from the government side that's trying to fix this, like to monitor this. But then in-house, they know that this is an issue for them, so they need to try and fix it.
Now, Maggie, typically, if I were to approach you for tax advice, if I asked you, I want to save my tax money, I would rather not pay Mr. Lake as much as he's asking. I'd like to pay a little bit less. I mean, is that a legal question, or am I entering into the territory of illegality now, of tax evasion?
It depends as to what you mean when you say that. Like, for example, if like it's a genuine like structuring opportunity. For example, if you say that, okay, I'm a US citizen and I come here maybe 3 times a year, and the cost of my employment are not borne by South Africa. So do I really have to pay tax here? And then the answer will be no. But then if you say that, okay, how will they know that I've been working here in South Africa? I'm paid offshore and nothing comes back to South Africa. There's no South African entity. How is SARS going to know that I've been working here? Then I'm going to tell you that they will know. And especially now with sharing of information, they are definitely going to catch them. But we always make our clients aware that you may think that they don't know or they won't know, but they will know.
Well, I guess the big question is then, who are the big tax evaders? Is it, you hinted at it at the Americans there, but let's find out. Mr. Lake, who are you targeting? I know there's 7 key areas. When you talked about the compliance program, it was announced in 2012. There was an update again this year of 7 key areas, 7 key individuals, perhaps we can call them, or corporate entities that you're choosing to target. So who are the big tax evaders? Who are the ones who are getting away with this and manipulating the tax base?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting developments globally where increasingly tax administrations, as Maggie pointed out, are cooperating far better. They're creating the necessary tools to exchange information. And all of that work takes place in a forum called the Tax Administration Forum of the OECD. And their last meeting was in Moscow in May, where they made some very strong public statements to say we are developing better tools to detect banking and decode banking transactions. We are sharing information more regularly. So hopefully over time, the space for people to evade and to hide profits and income will become less and less. But there is strong cooperation internationally. In South Africa, what we've done since 2012 is to look at our own tax base. And where we identified about 7 areas where we believe the levels of compliance are not what they should be. Now, having said that, I think if we look at the stats from 94 to where we are today, we've seen strong growth in the tax register. We have seen good improvement in the levels of compliance in this country. And that's really a credit to all South Africans. No one likes paying tax, perhaps including myself, but we accept that in a democratic dispensation like ours, it is part of our obligations as citizens in a country to make this democracy work. So it is something we must accept. I think what South Africans have done was really to come forward in a very positive way, help expand the tax base and improve the levels of compliance. There are 7 areas, though, where we think the levels of compliance are low.
Well, let's unpack those 7 areas shortly, but I think you hinted onto an interesting debate here, Mr. Lake. Why should we pay tax? Perhaps it's a devil's advocate argument, but, for those out there, for those critics of SARS, perhaps even the critics of the government who make these veiled racist comments about the government in place, they say, it's a corrupt government. It's one that's inefficient, that's not spending our tax money properly. My roads aren't fixed. My sewage is not picked up properly. My
Sure.
garbage is not cleaned. These are issues of what you're saying our money is spent on, why you collect tax money. If it's not being spent properly, how do you deal with that issue? Why do we pay tax then?
No, correctly and rightfully people are asking those questions, and they should. Because as public institutions in government, the money we collect is public money. The money the National Treasury allocates for public expenditure is tax money. It belongs to the public. And I think if you've listened to any of the statements or speeches the Minister of Finance makes, he's very intolerant of any form of misspending, of maladministration, of corruption within the public sector. That's number one. I think if you look at the 2013 budget speech, there were some firm commitments made, including the establishment of the Office of Chief Procurement Officer, who will look at pricing in the tender system, who will look at corruption, and who would sort of centralize the focus from within the state, because the state spends a lot of money on procuring goods and services. We must make sure that government pays the right price for what services it procures. So work is being done on those fronts. Coming to your question about dissatisfaction with the state of government and so on, I think previously on other programs on SFM, we spoke about, fine, you may not agree with this administration or with this political party or who's in charge at the moment. But if you look at the tax system and public institutions like SARS, it doesn't matter who governs in 5-10 years' time from now. You are still going to need a functional tax system to be able to fund government expenditure, regardless of who is in power or who is in office.
Let's go to the lines then, 0891 104 208 if you'd like to give us a call. Yaji is in Cape Town. Hi, Yaji.
Hi there, Darshan, and hi to your guest. I want to make a comment on this whole tax system being highly efficient. And, there's massive tax avoidance by the big companies and the banks, and financial institutions through transfer pricing and all of that. And we need to really look at how we raise revenue in this country. Now, income tax only came around in this country in 1914. Prior to that, this country experienced economic boom times with the gold rush, etc. So income tax is relatively new. It's never always been there. We need to look at taxing the bads in society. Why should we tax income and value added? We need to look at a land tax that taxes people for hoarding land, for speculating on land. And there's very positive implications for the economy and development and redistribution of land in that. We need to look at a levy on all financial transactions. So we tax speculation. So all these people shifting money to offshore havens, that money will be levied and all that money accruing to government. So we replace income tax and VAT with a levy on financial transactions, a land tax, and then we've got a carbon tax. Now the carbon tax is going to be an additional burden on people. So we can't have carbon tax added to income tax and VAT. So we need to rethink how we tax We know government needs revenue. They need to tackle tax avoidance, and a levy on financial transactions is one of the most efficient ways of dealing with tax avoidance.
Billy's calling in from Midrand. Hi, Billy.
Yeah, I'd like someone to show me in the Income Tax Act where it states paying income tax is compulsory. It's not. It's by consent and it's voluntary. And why should we be taxed if we are paying usury? If you're paying usury, if the government takes a loan from the Reserve Bank and it's attracting usury, the citizens are taxed to pay the usury. Get rid of the Reserve Bank. We don't need the usury. The government can print its own interest-free money. Tax is not, if you read the words, it's by consent. So someone please email me or show me in the Act exactly where it says you are compelled to pay tax, as defined in Black's Law Dictionary.
Adam in Randburg. Hi, Adam.
Oh, guys, great show. Two major points. The one is you guys, or a lot of callers talk about getting the big fry, getting the guys who own a lot of properties, getting the money from them. What you got to realize is that the guys who own 4 or 5 properties are providing accommodation to people that otherwise can't afford it. A lot of people can't go to the bank and say, well, I'd like to get a loan or I'd like to get a bond or anything like that. People just can't afford it. So the guys who are investing, and also foreign investors who are investing in property and buying property that can be rented out, they're making a bit of money, yes, but if you take away that incentive, you're going to get so many people who aren't going to be willing to invest and not going to be willing to come to South Africa for that benefit and to be able to create those homes and those places for people to live. And the second thing is, a lot of the tax that we get, we can add it up. That I as a normal middle-class employee or middle-class person, I pay more than 50% of my salary into tax, well more, because I'm paying on fuel, I'm paying on the accommodation. Every time I do a transaction, every time I buy food, everything is taxed. And I'm not getting anything back. I'm paying more than 50% of my year that I work. I work 6 months out of the year for the government, and I don't get anything back at all. Elsewhere in the world, in Europe and New Zealand and all of that, you're paying 40, 50, 60% tax, but you're getting free tertiary education. You're getting free health care. Even if I go to a government hospital today, I still have to pay. There's no free service at all. There's nothing incentivizing me to actually be willing to do it.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.